You teach people how to treat you. Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So today, as the title of the video says, we're going to be talking about something that is very personal to me. Now, this isn't something I normally would share with people because I just find that I don't have a lot of people that I can talk to about personal things like this. And most people, they aren't really available or down for this kind of conversations. But this is the benefit of having YouTube. I feel like on these platforms you can actually have a community that really cares about the things you're talking about, want to listen, and as well want to better themselves with the knowledge that you have to share. Some of us come from very healthy and well-to-do backgrounds, and some others, they come from not very great background per se, right? And I won't say my parents were bad. I'll just say the distance was something that really affected me because my dad has been away since I was 8 years, and I kid you not, till date, I haven't set eyes on him. Life happens to everybody. Sometimes you have it the good, sometimes you have it the bad, sometimes you could have it both ways. But irrespective of any way life has treated you, I just want you to know that you're not alone. You can always have a community that cares and supports you. The number one thing I disliked about my mother was always keeping the peace. When you keep the peace, no one respects you. People trample on you. People don't take you seriously. People trample on your shoulders, on your head. People take advantage all the time. And it's a question of, are you going to keep allowing people, have their way with you? Or are you going to stand your guard and have boundaries? And when people cross your boundaries, you're going to tell them you just crossed the boundary. I find that when you let people always take advantage of you, guess what? You teach them how to treat you. Like they say, you teach people how to treat you. All the time, you were just keeping the peace. Especially with, my father. If you're watching this video, you know I love you. But I just find that it was really exhausting. And, as parents, I feel like you're the first example for your kids, right? Whatever you let slide, your kids are going to pick it up. They're going to learn from it. And this is what they're going to pass on to their own children and even in their experience in life. I don't see any reason why you had to always keep the peace. And sometimes when I asked, you were always saying it's because of the kids. And if you're watching this video, I want you to understand that there's always a way to go about things. There's a thing called communication. You should be able to learn how to communicate, especially when your boundary has been crossed. How long are you going to continue to always keep the peace? I mean, is that all you want to be doing in this world? Imagine you're keeping the peace for one person, and then the other person learns that your style is to always keep the peace. They too, they are going to trample on you. And guess what? Imagine if 100 people knew that you're the kind of person that just let things slide and you don't address them. It means you're going to have to be dealing with 100%. That is a lot to deal with. I just found that very repulsive. It wasn't something that sat well with me. I did not like it at all. And each time I try to talk about it, it was, when your parents try to humble you, what do you know? You're still a child, that was the energy I always got. But I eventually learned to just withdraw my energy from that, because I, for one, chose I'm not going to be the person that takes bullshit from people. If you move anyhow, I'll put you in your place. That's the kind of person I am. You don't come around me crossing my boundaries and I'm not going to address it. I'm going to address it, sometimes kindly, sometimes harsh. It depends on my energy and mood in that passing second. But my point is, I just did not see any reason why you had to always, make room for peace every time. Peace, especially with my dad. I don't know why you did that. I still don't understand it. Maybe a time will come and I definitely will. But the way I see it, I just felt you should have had boundaries. And maybe this man would have treated you way better than he did. The second thing I didn't like was suffering and smiling. Yo, something is hurting you real bad. But instead of you to express that this thing is not good with you, you just keep a smiley face, just to give this person the impression that nothing is disturbing you, or giving them the impression that you're the bigger person, or you're not emotional. But I find that if you're going to say you're not emotional, then you should be strategic. I didn't find one time that you were very strategic. As much as fine, you say you don't want to express your emotions, then what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be strategic about expressing it, or are you going to not show emotions and then move strategically? These were not things you really did, and I was like, the fuck is going on? Pick a struggle. You either smile because you feel like smiling and smiling feels good to you, or you're going to struggle and suffer. because that is what feels good to you. But suffering and struggling and smiling at the same time, all three, that's like two roads apart. And I don't know how you pulled it off. Sometimes I think religion was the reason why you had to tolerate all this. But I just find that that was not a very good place to be for you. The next thing was poor communication and self expression. Self expression, I believe, is a form of therapy. If you're unable to express yourself, girl, I don't know what it is you're doing in this world, because if you're not seeing a therapist, you don't have someone that you go to speak to about the things that bother you, your spouse is not there to give you listening ears, because like I said at the beginning of the video, my dad traveled when I was 8 years old. Till date, I haven't set eyes on him. When you choose a guy to settle with, a man cannot be everything you look for, right? Just the same way a woman cannot be everything you look for. You could settle with a guy that works hard, takes care of the kids, I mean financially, but he's not emotionally intelligent, he's not always available. I actually say that everybody has their own package. So my dad was not the one to always be available, and all the way from the US, he hardly returned. Never visited, has been there till date. Now my point is, if you're not going to be communicating with this person a lot, then the marriage is already as good as a failure to me. Because I found that when things went wrong, you never really communicated, you never really expressed. You just always felt like, well, it is what it is, we're doing marriage and the kids are here. That to me was just, I feel like it was a contract and an agreement, because the way I see other people do marriage, yes, I know marriage is not like quote and unquote like people preach it to be, but I felt like you should have communicated a lot, expressed yourself a lot. Again, I can't really say, you know, um, what should have been and what shouldn't have been, but I feel like if I were in your shoes, I would have communicated more and expressed more. I grew up this kind of person that I believe in just not engaging in certain energies and with certain people. And all my life, this is how I've lived. I've been very selective the people I engage with. And this is because I saw my mom not even really have a conversation with my dad. Like, if you weren't feeling good, you weren't going to express to this guy that you were not feeling good. It wasn't a good thing at all to me. Thank God I've been doing my inner work, right? Thank God for healing. Thank God for content creators right now. Thank God for the internet, because otherwise I would have grown up like that and not really learned how to communicate in any way or form. Yes, I communicate right now. I communicate with the people I like and choose to communicate with. But I find that I had to teach myself to do that. And there are not many people that are open to learning and teaching themselves certain things. The next thing I didn't like was that you were brainwashed by religion, putting religion on a pedestal. At the end of the day, you have your logic to use. If someone has told you this is the way they've been living in this world before you came in, try to use your intuition and figure out if this thing really works for you. Okay, in doing this thing, like, how do I feel? How does it make me feel? I feel like people that pedestalize religion, it actually makes them become a religious zombie. Yes, it's a term I actually crafted for people that just put God on their head. They don't even use logic or intuition. Anything they read in the Bible, they don't try to personalize it. There's a way you read the Bible and then you actually personalize it. You try to understand the story. But normally, I find that a lot of people my mother's age, right, they read the Bible and took it verbatim, word for word. Like, if there was a story to pass a message, they actually assumed that story was real and that story happened. So it was a lot, and as a young girl, pretty, growing up with your parents who are very religious is a lot to deal with. When I was 18, I left the house and I went to live by myself. And ever since, I've always lived by myself. For one, I said, I'm going to figure out my path in this world. Nobody's going to, imbibe all those doctrines and old ways of thinking, to me, because I find that the people that are the most successful in this world, they don't really take religion that seriously. Yes, I get that religion has its parts to play, right? If it went for religion, by the way, a lot of poor people, they would have been out of control. The benefit of religion is that religion helps to curb a certain bracket of people and puts them in place, in check. You understand? It's like, oh, let them believe in something, so they don't cause chaos and something like that. I could be wrong, but I just felt like, you were so educated, you went to school, you had a fantastic job, you were working at the embassy, I don't see why. I don't see why you should have been so brainwashed by religion. But again, what can I say? When you don't have your hubby around and you as well don't have your family around, because my mom actually had to live by herself. Just the same way I left when I was 18. So my mom has always fended for herself. And sometimes we can make choices, not really knowing exactly what we're choosing, not really checking it the logical way and following our hearts. We just follow things because we see every other person follow it. I'm not that kind of person. I'm a question everything. I'm a check within myself if this thing makes sense to even follow. The next thing I didn't like was that you were unstrategic and unintentional. Whoever is in this world that isn't strategic and intentional, you've already set yourself 10 times backwards. The second I realized this, I started moving differently. Everybody's wearing a mask. If there were 10 people in this world, 9.5 out of 10 always are on a mask. And when I figured that shit out, I just realized that I'm not one to actually wear masks. I don't wear masks. I find it very stressful. This is me. What I tell you is what is. When I show up as my authentic self. So what I've just learned to do is when dealing with people, I actually put it at the back of my head that most people wear masks. Most people are always on a mask. So as much as they're on a mask, they're always strategic, they're always intentional. I don't see why I should come to the table not being strategic and unintentional. You always have to keep checking where your loyalties lie and where the people you are working hand to hand together, where their loyalties lie also. If you say this is your spouse, you can't just assume they're going to be your spouse forever. They're going to be in love with you forever. You have to keep checking. This person I'm married to, are they on the same page as me? This is why I say communication is important. In communicating, you'll be able to listen and tell that this person is on the same page as yourself. But when there's no communication, guess what? You just assume, you have a marriage the entire time. The dude is out there doing his own thing. You're in believe that you're in a marriage. And each time I brought it up, it was like, you're a child. What do you know? He's your dad. All that was very irritating and irritable to me. I'm going to go over the likes. Mom, I love you. The number one thing I liked about my mother was that she had a lot of discipline. My mom literally prayed 2 times every day. This was prayers we actually had together as a family. There were times she would even go into her inner carcass, like in her own private space, and I could hear her still praying, saying prayers under her breath. That was something I really respected about you. That was something I really loved about you. It takes a lot for one to be consistent in doing one thing. I don't think that there was ever a day that went by we did not pray at least twice. There were times, especially in the evening, when my mom would call us for prayers, and my siblings were so tired. Sometimes I'll be tired, I could doze off, and she'd be like, you're the first. You can't be sleeping while your siblings are sleeping. Hi. They were too long, at minimum an hour. If you have a parent like that, there is no way discipline will not be imbibed in you. There's no way you're not going to learn how to be disciplined. And this is something that hasn't left me. Sometimes even when I lazy around, there are times I just catch myself and remember who I am, and I just be like, oh, I miss the me that used to be very disciplined. And guess what? I just fall back into character. And this was something I really loved about my mother. I don't know how she pulled it off, but I feel like she was in a masculine a lot because she had to fend for us. My dad never was around. And as a woman, you can't be a very feminine woman, especially when you don't have all the resources to be a feminine woman and the safety to be a feminine woman, to just rest in your feminine. So it makes a lot of sense why she had to be disciplined for herself and for the kids. The second thing is dedication to your kids. I've had female friends, right? I've even had married female friends. I have a friend. She literally takes 3 months off just to go enjoy herself in another city. Not like it's a bad thing, but I'm just saying the fact that you were with us 24/7, there were no off days, there were no outing days. It was just the kids, because my mom always believed when the kids are grown, they are going to do so well and they will never forget me. That was the kind of mother. That's the kind of mother I have. And to this day, sometimes I wonder, if you weren't there for us, what would it have been like? I'm not saying it would have been bad, because of course we would have learned our lessons regardless, but it's something I'm really grateful you were able to do for us. The next thing is cleanliness. Oh my god, my mom was she still is, by the way, a clean freak. Literally, during her wedding, I told you guys she used to work in the embassy, right? And during her wedding, she was gifted a lot of cutleries and utensils, and There were days my mom would just wake up and she would just start cleaning her cutleries and plates and everything. And I'm like, this thing is not dirty. She's like, I can see dust in it. I can see dust in it. I'm like, you just like stressing yourself. And she always liked doing things herself. While I was there, I used to help with a lot of, house chores and all that. But my point is that now, looking at myself, I'm such a clean person. And I know, yeah, some people will go, don't blow your trumpet and all that, right? But yeah, whatever. I just feel like I took over that and it has helped me a lot. I don't get that compliment a lot. In a day, I can get it like 2 times or twice from someone. They can just tell that I'm so clean. It's a good compliment, actually. The next thing I liked about my mom is that she's very reliable. She's someone that, if you say we're going to conquer the world together, she's like, I'm right behind you. I'm by your side. We're going to do this shit together. Honestly, I don't think I would have sustained it being with a guy like my father. And part of the reason she was able to do it, number one is religious brainwash. Number two is love brainwash also. But that aside, my mom was so reliable. Like, I remember several times she would have to help my dad. In fact, all the lands my dad have in Nigeria, my mom was the one that bought it for him. In fact, his house, my mom was the one that built it, helped him build it. Contractors down to the people that were doing all the labor and all that. My mom was there, would send pictures, she would have to send it to my dad. Honestly, I don't think I could have done that if I were in her shoes. Sometimes when I send them monies to like keep, she's that kind of person that would keep it for you. I even remember my younger sister when she was going to buy her land, and my mom was the one that helped her. She's just that kind of babe that you can count on. She's very reliable, but you can't be doing that for nobody or everybody unless you vetted that this person is reliable in return and this person is actually bringing you some value one way or the other. You were so amazing, you had your flaws, and you also had the good side of you. Now I'm gonna go over my father. The number one thing I disliked about my dad was that he was selfish. I've always heard that men are selfish. It was actually the best lesson I learned, especially dealing with men and how to go about my life, right? I actually found that in dealing with people, I was very cautious. If this person isn't bringing me value, if I'm not growing myself in some sort of way, there's no reciprocity when it comes to value, I just found that I cut myself off that person immediately. And sometimes it was that good that I was that good at it that the second I listen to you and hear you talk, I can already tell if you're going to bring me value or not, right? Yeah, when I was way younger, I was way selfish. But as I developed, I became less selfish and I realized that in dealing with people, you have to be able to check if they're bringing you value or not. My dad hasn't returned ever since. I'm hoping that someday he will. And I look forward to really hearing his stories. But if it doesn't happen, no force is still a good thing. You never can tell. The second thing I did not like about my dad was that he had no time for the kids. Like, how are you going to have 4 children? You don't provide for them real good. You only put them through school. You don't have their time. You don't make out time to call them, to hear from them. That was the most annoying thing for me. Like, in fact, to show you the level at which I learned how to be selfish, my siblings would normally call. I was the one who never reached out. I wouldn't call you because for how long do I want to be calling someone that doesn't want to be reached out to? So I made a promise to myself that I'm not going to reach out to somebody that doesn't want to hear from me. And some people say that was not a good thing to do, but really I feel like it actually helped me in some type of way because I didn't really get into being a very anxious person. Because I find that when daughters have fathers like this and they keep calling their fathers, they normally resort to having an anxious attachment style. If you have no idea what attachment style is, go and read about it. Maybe sometime I'll make it in my video. I'll make a video about it. There's anxious, there's avoidant, there's dismissive, and then there's safe attachment style. But I feel like if I was calling my dad all the time, it would have resulted to me having a very anxious attachment style. If you're a lady, that means whenever you get on with a guy or you have a boyfriend, you're always going to be the one reaching out to him, calling him, wanting to hear how he's doing. And honestly, I didn't have time for that. That was a lot of bullshit for me. I feel relationships should be about reciprocity. It shouldn't be a one-sided thing where I get to call you all the time. I don't know, but as young as I was, I just felt that was a very odd thing about a parent and child relationship where, the parents always want to be the one to be called. And honestly, I haven't heard from my dad in years. Not because I don't think about him sometimes, But it's just that I just made a decision that if the guy doesn't want to reach out, there were times I was reaching out, but I realized this shit is not what it is because there's no sort of reciprocity to it. And that was when I just gave up on it entirely. If you're going to be an absent father, make funds available for your children so that they can be taken care of properly, so that they can be provided for, so you don't have to be in survival, so you don't have to, go meeting people, speaking to people they don't have to speak to, so they don't go doing things they don't have to do just for resources, just for money. And it's not like you don't have these resources to provide. It's just a factor of having a lack mindset, right? Or maybe wanting to teach your children the tough lessons you actually learned for yourself. I feel like even if I came from lack and I make enough resources, I should be able to teach my kids the core lessons of this world and not make them go through the same struggles I went through because I want them to learn how life works. I just thought that was a very crazy dynamic for me coming from a parent. The next thing I didn't like about my dad was treating your spouse wrongly. By the way, if you're not into BDSM, I don't see any reason why you should treat your spouse like shit. It doesn't make sense to me. It's absolutely absurd to me, especially coming from a religious person. You'd behave wrongly, and sometimes you wouldn't even send resources. For what? For what? I don't even get it. Why would you behave like that? Well, I can't really blame you because you got a very good woman for a wife, a very kind, loving, calm. Honestly, I'm the total opposite of my mother. And sometimes I wish it was really you and I that were doing this thing, I would have given it to you hot. But that's by the way, I feel like you shouldn't treat your spouse like a slave. It's not worth it. It just shows the level of selfishness and wickedness you have in you. The next thing I didn't like about my dad was that he was verbally abusive. Yes, call it whatever you want, but if you would call your spouse and speak to your spouse in a certain way, just because you want to prove a point, it doesn't make sense to me. I feel like there's a way to speak to your spouse. Every chance you get shouldn't be an opportunity to cuss your spouse out, drag them out, show them how incompetent they are, just because they made a certain mistake or they didn't do things exactly the way you wanted it to be. Like, I remember one time my mother wanted to go into business, and my dad had given her some money to start a rice business, right? And she went, rented a shop, and then she went to the company. They actually loaded like several bags of rice for her. By the way, I'm going to be honest in my videos because on this channel, authenticity is the vibe here. If you want something curated, fake shit, go out there, go to other channels. This is not a channel for you. This was a business I actually helped my mom run, and I remember then every weekend I would always go open the place up. During school days I had to go to school, and after school I'll have to get back home, sometimes go see her place of business, or sometimes just be at home and do my homework and all that. And I remember because my dad wasn't always sending monies, right? There were times this dude had to literally be reminded to send monies for feeding. Like, it did not make sense to me. And sometimes I'm like, why won't you give this guy, like, stress this guy up? And I remember I'll have to write him, a week has passed and you haven't sent our allowance, you haven't sent anything. And then he'll remember, oh, okay, he will now send it. And each time I wanted to talk about this, raise my voice, my mom will always be like, don't do that. She always had fear in her that if she actually expressed herself, he was going to cut us off, cut every means of sending even the little funds he was sending. Like, there will be literally no access and she'll have nothing to do about it. And I remember when the business had gone down, right? Because my mom, girls, you have 3 girls and a boy, right? Girls, they have to be taken care of, school expenses. And this wasn't my dad is not the kind of guy you just call, oh, we need money for this. Whatever he sent you for the month, you had to manage with. And that was a very annoying thing for me. And by the way, that was pretty much why I went into entrepreneurship. The rest of the time I was still at home, and even sometimes when I visited, and even sometimes my mother would call, she would always make reference, or my dad would always make reference how we'd give her money and she couldn't sustain a business and the business went down. I used to read and listen to a lot of entrepreneurs in the US, and it was very clear from the beginning when I started listening to these people that business is this fickle. You can start a business, and even me myself, I've had experiences. Go and watch my YouTube videos, you'd see businesses I went into. You can get into a business today, and the next day the business is down. And you can get into another business today, and the next day the business kicks off and is able to sustain itself. And every time my dad would guilt trip my mom about this business, guilt trip her, and this was the most annoying shit to me. These were things I didn't like about him. These were things that I really wish my mom was able to stand her ground and express herself. Of course, not in a masculine way, right? In a feminine way. Because there's a feminine way to communicate and there's a masculine way to communicate. If you're a masculine woman, you communicate in a masculine way unless you really know how to communicate in a feminine way. But there's a way to communicate to a man in a feminine way that would make him reflect on his actions and then do better. But if you don't communicate at all, that's a problem. It means you've already sent a message that this way of approach to you is acceptable, even though you don't feel good about it. The number one thing I liked about my father was that he puts himself first. It pays off huge, big time. Like if you put yourself first in this world, only you comes first before anybody and anything, who are going to follow suit. You see how they say bad people actually succeed and the good ones, they take time? Or how they say good girls finish last? That shit is true as fuck. Because my dad was the most selfish guy out there, and guess what? He had all his dreams achieved. And to this day, guy is still there, you know, living his life and just enjoying himself. The lesson there is that it pays off to be selfish. If you have a very important goal, something you really want to achieve for yourself, guys, I'll tell you to be selfish. Unless if maybe you need some strategic alliance where you need to work with people, that's the only time maybe you wouldn't be selfish. But if it's a journey you have to go on yourself, on your own, it's okay to be selfish. It's not a bad thing at all to be selfish. My dad just had this, I know send your papa, he know they pay my bills energy. Basically, in English, that would be, I don't give a rat's ass about you. If you're going to be doing marriage in this world, be very clear what you're getting into. Don't do things for people. You have yourself to be accountable to. Do things that make you happy. Other than the children, I don't think my mom has really been more happy than she's been sad. Marriage is really overrated. But if I'm ever going to do it, I'm going to do it smart. I'm going to do it the Shira 7 way. And thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe. Bye.